Hello and welcome to our drop-in meditation practice with True North Insight. And my name is Jill Davey, and sharing practice and teachings tonight, inspired by it's really just a paragraph in an article that I read from teacher Alan Wallace. For those of you here on the Zoom call, I'll put a link. And if you're here on YouTube, the links will be down below underneath the recording. So I'll just pop those in as I'm chatting here for this Dharma teacher, author, scholar, for his webpage. There's lots of wonderful resources there. And also Alan Wallace is maybe the founder or one of the founders. I think he's the main founder of what's called the Santa Barbara Institute for Consciousness Studies. So he's quite well known for kind of the marrying of science and Buddhism, the teachings from the Buddha and Buddhism. Particularly his lineage, I believe, is Tibetan Buddhism. And yeah, so this is what I'm sharing tonight is just one question in an article where the interviewer asked Alan Wallace what makes for a meaningful life. A big question. And the article goes on and is more about it's an article on what is true happiness. And but this one piece kind of caught my attention, and I've thinking about what that might mean for me. What is a meaningful life, and might be something you feel worthwhile to contemplate at some time. And so Alan Wallace shares what he described as 4 ingredients for a meaningful life. So nice when there's these pithy little recipes. 4 ingredients, that sounds manageable. I can create something out of that. It's not like too daunting. And of course, it's deceptively simple. So the first ingredient that he shares is it sounds like he reflects on this kind of considering each day rather than his life as a whole. He says, I consider each day, and this is something I've done as a practice at times, where at the end of each day, reflecting, this day has now ended, my life is shorter, let me look closely, what have I done? And to see if in that day, was there, contribution, was there kindness, was there compassion, was there joy, just kind of contemplating what that day is over, what happened. and then also starting the day with another reflection on the intention for the day. And so Alan Wallace was sharing that rather than looking at his whole life and seeing if it's a meaningful life, of course, if you look at each day at the end, whenever that is, it makes a meaningful life. And so his first reflection is, first of all, was it a day of what he says, uses the word virtue? And you may have heard, and this is something we often share, one of the very essential beginning places of our practice of awakening and compassion, kindness, wisdom is what's called sila, ethics, morality. So sila is the Pali word for virtue. It's S-I-L-A, sila. And to look at like what are your values, your ethics, your moral compass, your foundation of your intentions of how you're moving into the world. For this lineage of Vipassana, insight, meditation, in the Theravadan tradition, there's for lay people such as myself, householders, there's 5 daily precepts or undertakings, intentions, guidelines that guide us into what Alan Wallace is calling here a meaningful life. And these can be recited, read, contemplated, chanted at the beginning of each of your meditation practices or the beginning of your day. You don't have to use these 5. These are just what I practice with. You could reflect on what, aside from these are what is part of this tradition, but what is meaningful for you. And when lay people are on a longer retreat, we also have the opportunity to undertake eight precepts, but the 5 are kind of the daily life precepts. And monastics have hundreds of precepts that they follow, hundreds. Nuns have more than monks. And so these 5, I'll just give you a context of what these 5 are. And I'll probably put them underneath in the YouTube video as well, down below, so that you have them in writing there. So the first is that I undertake the training to refrain from the destruction of life. And the wording of these are very important. I undertake the training. It's not a commandment, and it's not a rule. It's a heart intention, and it's an understanding that this very flawed being is causing harm just by the nature of being in the world. Harm is caused, and we undertake the training to refrain from, to not cause harm with intention in the destruction of life. The second is undertaking the training to refrain from taking what isn't freely given. That's a wordy way to say not stealing, not taking what isn't freely given. And this, this can be material goods. It can mean leaving the tap running when I'm brushing my teeth. It can be, taking more than my share of resource. Not that we have a share, but being aware of the interconnectedness of that. Taking somebody's time, taking, energy from people without, like, is it freely given? The third is undertaking the training to refrain from misconduct in the area of sensual desires or sexual desires. It depends on which translation you're reading. It actually became sexual desires in the context of for monastics and for lay people on retreat, but some of the root writings, the word is more closely translated to sensual desires. So all of our sense desires, and refraining from misconduct in these areas of causing harm. The fourth one is undertaking this training to refrain from speaking falsely. So not lying, not causing harm with our words. We can go a bit wider with, like, this is just speaking about speaking falsely. So asking ourselves, is it true? Is it really true? But then when we reflect on wise speech, it goes even further than that. And the last one is undertaking the training to refrain from heedlessness, intoxication, which causes heedlessness or carelessness. So using substances, drugs, or alcohol, or I also include my cell phone in this category because it can be certainly used for a lot of heedlessness and intoxication of it. And yeah, so these are the 5 precepts in this tradition for lay people. And so don't feel that you need to take those on, but rather reflect on what is your foundation of virtue, of ethics, morality, values that guide your life. This is very, very important to articulate and narrow it down and see, what is it that, because this foundation of moving through the world and how it affects our speech, our thoughts, our actions, creates safety, creates meaning, means that we are safer people to be with because we have intentions to not cause harm in these various ways. So important reflection there around not causing harm with our speech and actions. And conversely, so that's like the negative view of that, not causing harm, but it's also this deep intention to be a safe harbor, to be skillful, wholesome, yeah, as much as we can. And that's why that phrasing of I undertake the training is like realizing it's an ongoing learning, mistakes made, apologies, amends, learning, doing better. The second ingredient that Alan Wallace shared in this little answer to this question of second ingredient of a meaningful life, he said is second, he says, I'd like to feel happy rather than miserable. He says, the realized beings I've known exemplify extraordinary states of well-being. It shows in their demeanor, their way of dealing with adversity, with life, and with other people. And this is an interesting word to me, happiness. Happy. What is happy? I can't be happy all the time. I get myself into these little spins with it, like, what does that mean to be happy? And happiness is, in Pali, is sukha, S-U-K-H-A. And some of you might recognize that sounds a lot like its opposite, which is dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. And dukkha is, again, sometimes we use these Pali words because translated into English is very inadequate. So in very brief, we could say that dukkha is stress, is suffering, is things not being how we want them to be, and not being able to keep the things that we do want. We can't control all these variables and keep ourselves from aging, sickness, and death, and all those we love, and our earth itself. Yeah, so that's dukkha. There was another word there. The unreliability of life, and its opposite is sukha, S-U-K-H-A, which is sometimes translated as happiness. And again, nah, not a great translation because it just simplifies it into this thing, happiness. But it's really contentment, joy, ease. And before the recording here, we were chatting in the Zoom call, and some people were sharing their ingredients for meaningful life, and enthusiasm was one of them. So enthusiasm might fit into this definition of sukha, of happiness. But I especially appreciate what one of our participants shared from Bernie Glassman, of using all the ingredients in our life. That what does that mean for happiness? That's just so good. Because we can think that happiness means I get all the good things, then I'm happy. I get things how I want them, then I will be happy. All the external conditions, all the internal conditions, the state of my mind and heart, state of the world, I can get these certain ingredients will equal happiness. And this invitation that it's actually, first of all, that's not possible. So that's helpful to recognize. But then to be that all these ingredients that are here right now are perfect. This present moment is exactly as it needs to be, because it is the way it is. And what does it mean to feel presence, awareness, with all of these ingredients that are here right now in any moment? At another point, Alan Wallace shares that the ground state of awareness, this is the source of bliss that can be uncovered. Just the ground state of awareness, which includes all the ingredients. And this idea that is fed to us, like heavily fed to us in our culture and economy, is that it's getting certain ingredients is the way to happiness. Yeah. And that sense of external, that it comes from some external source, and that is not the type of happiness of sukha. Sukha is this inner presence. It's a simpler happiness than our culture's version of happiness. It's a contentment, ease, equanimity. The fourth ingredient that Alan Wallace invites into his sense of a meaningful life is, I'll just read his words. He says, none of us exist in isolation. However, so there is a fourth ingredient. A meaningful life must also answer this question: what have I brought to the world? If I can look at a day and see that virtue, happiness, I think I missed one. Yeah, I did. I'll come back to truth. So I'm going to come back to that one, is the third one. and living an altruistic life are prominent elements, then I can say, you know, I am a happy camper. So then he says, pursuing happiness does not depend on my checkbook or the behavior of my spouse or my job or my salary. I can live a meaningful life even if I only have 10 minutes left. So I missed the third one, which I'll go back to. So the first is virtue or sila, ethics, your ethical moral foundation. The second is sukha, happiness, and what does that really mean? And the third is truth, which means, well, he actually phrases it as the pursuit of truth, which is seeking to see clearly, understand deeply the nature of things, how things are, the nature of reality. And this is, of course, what Vipassana insight meditation is very much about, is seeing clearly, cultivating this steadiness and awareness, curiosity, alertness that shows us the nature of life, the nature of reality, the nature of this being that I call me, self. Yeah. And someone was sharing in our conversation before the really fabulous image of one of these ingredients for meaningful life of vivid awareness, really bright and seeing clearly the nature of things and the joy that can be in that. Really noticing what is often left unnoticed. Yeah, so that's the third one, is truth, or I would say insight. And then the fourth is, as I was mentioning, this intention to live in a life of contribution in some way. So asking ourselves, what have I brought to the world? And again, this can be at the end of the day, reflecting, this day is now ended. Let me look closely, what have I done? And sometimes that can feel very daunting. And we, of course, in our westernized way, and turn this into a self-judgment of like, I'm not doing enough, and what did I do, and that kind of thing. And it does not have to be some huge monumental contribution. It can be compassionately moving an insect from inside your home to outside. It could be picking up some litter on your walk through the park. It could be making time to thoughtfully and kindly remind the teacher, have you sent that email today? This happened, and much appreciated. It can be these mindful and kind small gestures of connecting and showing care, and time spent with an animal being or companion that's in your life. Creating beauty, random acts of kindness, spontaneous acts of beauty. So the virtue, happiness, truth, and living an altruistic, contributing way, the sense of, because these other, it brings that sense of interconnectedness of how my thoughts and actions and speech have an impact on others, and it can have this ripple effect where a small kindness is received by us, and then we feel compelled, not compelled, we feel inspired to offer that to others. Yeah. So I found this a sweet list of 4 ingredients, and within these 4 ingredients, I would totally agree with Bernie Glassman that to use all the ingredients of our life are part of this this way of making meaning. But and what stands out for you? Take some time to reflect on this, so that at the end, if we have the opportunity to be reflective at the end of our life, which we may not because it can happen suddenly and any moment. So this is why it's good to practice it every day. When we're looking at our lives, was it a meaningful life? In what way? What for us creates meaning and purpose? And yeah, helpful reflections. I don't know if I want to say any more about that. Let me just see. This reminds me of what someone was sharing earlier in the group about using all the ingredients. This is something that Shantideva said. Those deciding to escape from suffering hasten towards suffering. So I was saying that word earlier, dukkha is suffering, and the opposite is sukha, or happiness, peace, contentment. And so those of us who are trying to escape from suffering, which is that selecting the ingredients, like I don't want this in my life, that does not fit in my version of peace or happiness. When we have that attitude, we are actually speeding up, hastening towards suffering. This is what Shantideva said. Those deciding to escape from suffering hasten right towards suffering. That's exactly what I hear when from that phrase from Bernie Glassman of using all the ingredients, that when we try to, the very desire for happiness, where our mistaken view of, getting this, getting rid of that, controlling everything, is actually hastening us towards more suffering. Okay, so we're going to practice. And part of the practice, I'm going to say these precepts again. And, so you're welcome to kind of let them settle or flow through around you. Or there will be time for you to find what precepts or values, virtues resonate for you in your own words. And you can just try these on and see how that affects you. All right, so as we're preparing for practice, we're looking for a posture that is conducive to wakefulness, uprightness, and also ease and peace, comfort. So getting any supports you need. It's for some of us a sleepy time of evening to be practicing. So you might find it helpful to practice standing if you feel overwhelmed with a lot of sleepiness. Or you might need a cushion down low behind your hips so that you're sitting upright or onto a kneeling bench or cushion. You can also practice in a reclined position, and you might lift up your knees or forearm if there's a lot of sleepiness. I'm also going to be sharing a poem in the midst of the practice, and I'll put the link down below, and I've shared it in the chat here for those on the Zoom call. So taking any sighing breaths you need, bringing your intention towards stillness. Softness. And through stillness and softness, allowing the knowing of the ground, body, sensations of contact, pressure, connection. This is the first foundation of mindfulness, mindfulness of body. It really has the quality of connecting us to the present moment. And so exploring these 4 ingredients for a meaningful life shared by Alan Wallace. The first being virtue. I'll offer these 5 precepts, and you can just see in what way they may resonate for you. And then there will be space to just change it into your own language, your own words that really touch your heart, that inspire you, with the feeling of meaning. These trainings, I undertake the training to refrain from the destruction of life. To simplify that, it might sound like I'm inspired deeply by the intention to not cause harm, to not take life. not destroy life. I undertake the training to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. So I intend to not steal, not take what isn't freely given. I undertake the training to refrain from misconduct in the area of sensual and sexual desires, to not cause harm with my sensuality, sexuality. I undertake the training to refrain from speaking falsely. And I undertake the training to refrain from intoxication, which leads to carelessness. Understanding deeply how our values, intentions that guide our life can create peace or create suffering, create meaning or create suffering. And then looking at this second aspect of what is being shared here of a meaningful life, of happiness or sukha. And some inspiration here in this poem called One Ship Comes In by Joe Paddock. I swear my way now will be to continue without plan or hope, to accept the drift of things, to shift from endless effort to joy in, say, that robin plunging into the mossy shallows of my bird bath and splashing madly till the air shines with spray. Joy it will be, say, in Nancy, pretty in pink and rumpled t-shirt, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Or joy, even in just this breathing. Free of fright and clutch. Knowing how one's ship comes in with each such breath. The invitation here to release the endless effort and just feel the sweet happiness, simple invitation, calm, sweet joy of just this breathing. What would it feel like if this breath was free of clutch and fright, desire and aversion? So sweet and simple that right now, just this breath and the next can be a happiness. What we are seeking comes from within. And in this silence, we may notice the times of fright or clutch, as the poem reminds us. And it's just part of our habituated humanness. And to not exclude that. This is one of the ingredients right now. Oh, there's wanting something else. There's a little boredom or restlessness or sleepiness or wanting to keep something or get rid of something. And here we come to this third aspect of meaningful life, seeing things truly with insight, seeing clearly the nature of things. Conditioned, impermanent, unreliable. And inviting this vivid awareness. Really waking up to how things are right now. And this last invitation, perhaps a source of meaning for you. What have I brought to the world? What do I hope to offer to the world? Is there some way I can offer some kindness, time, generosity, compassion to myself, to others, to the earth itself? And to not dismiss the ways that you are doing this, to minimize or dismiss or say not enough or it doesn't really matter. Really let yourself know and feel there has been contribution. Meaning. And being here in relationship with ourselves, looking into the nature of our hearts and minds and cultivating these deep intentions is a gift to the world. Awareness is a source of bliss. So if you've joined us on the YouTube recording, the link to the poem will be down below, and to Alan Wallace's page. And I'll also put the precepts there. Let me make a note to myself so I don't forget. Precepts. Yeah, thank you for joining us in practice. Where's my stop recording button? There it is. It's up there now.